So I want to welcome everyone.
Gotta get YouTube live.
Oh,
Okay, you're good.
I want to welcome everyone to the regular meeting of council for the Township of Seguin on October 16th. A little bit of explanation. I'm not the mayor. I'm actually the Ward 4 Councilor, Terry Fellner, but I've been asked to chair this meeting. Before we get started, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. We would like to honor and thank our community partners of the First Nations, the Anishinaabe. Before we begin this meeting, we wish to pay respect to the First Nations, past and present, and acknowledge the important role First Nations people continue to play within our community. We acknowledge the importance of our First Nation community partners. We value their cultures, their histories, and their relationship with all peoples. Thank you. So I will call this meeting to order and ask for an approval of the agenda. Can I have a firster with Ken and seconder with Mario? Mario, yes,
Sorry, I just wanted to add one item to the agenda.
go ahead.
Just talking about the long arm access point on Otter Lake
Right, okay,
for the open part of the
for
meeting.
the open part, okay.
You want a seconder for that?
You're saying, let me ask Craig how we fit that in.
I would say just add it to the business. So whatever your item is on business, just add a last item.
Okay, so I will add under business D. And it's what to discuss access,
The long arm access point on Otter
long
Lake.
arm access point, okay. Otter. Can I have someone to move that? Do I need a mover and a seconder for that? I got a mover with Mario. Can I have a seconder with Ken? All in favor? And did we vote on the agenda?
You're good, yes.
Yeah, we're good to go there. Okay. Mario, Ken. The next order of business is the adoption of minutes. Oh, disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Has anyone got anything that they wish to declare? I don't need to vote on that. Okay, we'll move to the adoption of minutes. The minutes of the regular and closed sessions of council held on the 2nd of October. I need a mover. Ken, we'll use you and a seconder. Gail, okay.
Just read the motion.
Yeah.
And the vote.
But I have to get it on the table first and then read it?
Should read it to this one.
Oh, okay, well, I would have done it different. That the council of the corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular and closed session meetings of council held October 2nd, 2023 as circulated, and this was moved by Councillor Collins and seconded by Councillor Vincent. All in favor? Okay, that's carried unanimously.
So just mark the
Carried.
initials.
You have to sign
Just
anything?
initials there.
Okay.
I'll get you to sign everything after the meeting's over. Right.
Okay, so council of the corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matters. Consent application number B 2023-0015-C for Duckworth. Consent application numbers B 2023-008/9-R and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0019-R. Boy, Kalachnik, sorry if I ruined that, / Fraser / Kurtz. And finally, consent application number B 2023-0013-F for Weichel. Can I have a move for this? Moved by Ann, seconded by Gail. Now, do I have something in a script I need to?
Just all in favor and
Oh, yeah, and everybody in favor. Yeah. Okay. So that's carried. Okay, okay, so. Council will now hold public meetings for proposed consent and zoning bylaw application, amendment applications. In accordance with the Planning Act, council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent or passing a zoning bylaw. Anyone wishing to receive notice of the passing of a zoning bylaw amendment and who has not submitted such a request in writing should provide your full name and address to the clerk. This is your time, he's right there. No one other than the prescribed persons may appeal an application under the provisions of the Planning Act. If they do not make an oral submission at a public meeting or make written submissions to the council of the corporation of the Township of Seguin prior to the decision of council, then the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. The purpose of consent application number B 2023-0015-C Duckworth is to sever one new rural lot with a frontage on Star Lake Road. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which the notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property. Posting on, posting on the Township of Seguin's website and by regular mail on October 2nd, 2023. Notice was therefore considered provided in accordance with requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Is there anyone present in person in the council chambers who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application? If so, please move to the podium there and identify yourselves by name and provide your address. No? Nobody interested? Okay. Has anyone registered to speak to this application via electronic participation?
No one has registered to speak to this application.
Does council have any questions? Mario?
When I look at the plan, the map that shows the two lots,
Right.
if you look at lot one, on the southern lot boundary, it goes from the road to the end of the property, but on the north lot boundary, it doesn't go from the road to the lot boundary. Is that just a mistake in drawing?
Maybe Taylor, Taylor, maybe perhaps you can speak to this for us, please.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you repeat it?
Yes. For lot one, on the north and south boundaries of the lot, shown by the dotted lines, the one dotted line goes right out to the road, or I believe that's the road, but the north one doesn't. And I wondered, is that just a graphical mistake, or?
Oh, do you mean the red dotted line or kind of dissects?
No, the black dotted lines.
The black dotted line, so the one that says 176. Is that the one?
At the bottom, the one and it goes right to the road, but the north one that's 148.81 doesn't go to the road. So I wondered.
That is the setback from the dwelling approximately to the roads right away. So that's just there for a representation, show how far back the dwelling is set back from the roadway.
Oh, it's not the boundary of the lot.
No, it's not. The The red dotted line is the severance between lot 1 and lot 2. The black dotted lines show setbacks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, Ted?
Taylor, when you drew that line in, recognizing the road allowance setback, what's the length of that? And is that usually written that there's a certain 20 meters, 30 meters, whatever that distance is from the road allowance back?
So are you asking what the setback is for a dwelling, like what the minimum requirement is, or?
Yes, from the road allowance.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me just quickly open that up here. Not zone, the minimum, front yard is 15 meters, so they are greatly exceeding that.
So that's approximately 50 meters down to that line's limit, correct? You know. Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Taylor. I can live with that, 15 meters.
Anything else? Okay. The purpose of consent application number B 2023-0008-R and B -2023-0009-R Kalyachnik/Fraser is to permit lot additions. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0019-R Fraser Kurtz is to rezone a portion of the land to a village residential 1 exception zone. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which the notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property, posting on the Township of Seguin's website, and by regular mail on September 22nd, 2023. Notice was therefore considered provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to these applications?
No correspondence has been received.
Is there anyone present in person in council chambers who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to these applications? If so, please move to the podium and identify yourself by name and provide your address. Has anyone registered to speak to these applications via electronic participation?
No one has registered to speak to these applications.
Does council have any questions? Everybody good? Okay, we'll move to the purpose of consent application number R 2023-0013-F Wyco is to create 1 new lot on Osler Park Drive. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property, posting on the Township of Seguin's website, and by regular mail on October 2nd, 2023. Notice was therefore considered to provide in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Is there anyone present in person in the council chambers who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application? If so, please move to the podium and identify yourself by name and provide your address. Boy, this is a quiet one. Has anyone registered to speak to this application via electronic participation?
No one has registered to speak to this application.
Really quiet. Does council have any questions? Okay. Thank you. Council will now close the public meeting and reconvene to the regular meeting.
Switch.
Now that's back. That the public meeting held for the following matters is hereby closed and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. Consent application B 2023-0015-C Duckworth, consent application B 2000-0008/9 and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0019-R. I apologize, Kalachnik/Fraser Kurtz. I'll be better the next time. Consent application B 2023-0013-F Weichel. Can I have a mover? Moved by Greg. Seconded by Ken. And a vote. Anybody got any questions? No vote. Okay, so that was carried. That was Greg and Ken, right? No, I got it.
So this is the Duckworth consent.
So this is the Duckworth consent. Okay, that the council of the corporation of the township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application number B 2023-0015-C Duckworth, subject to the conditions set out in the decision. And I have a mover, moved by Mario, seconded by Gail. All in favor? And that's carried.
Four of them for the next bunch.
4 for the next bunch. Okay. Get your money's worth. Okay, that this one is that the council of the corporation of the township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application number B 2023-0008-R Kalachnik and B 2023-0009-R Fraser Kurtz, subject to the conditions set out in decisions. Can I have a mover? Gail, seconder, Ann. All in favor? And that's carried. The bylaw number 2023-111 being a bylaw to amend Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125. Property roll numbers 490-020-002-06930 and 4903-020-002-07001. Everybody, application number R 2023-0019-R for Kalachnik/Fraser Kuntz is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Can I have someone move? Ken is going to move that one and Mario is seconded. All in favor? That's passed. Okay. The bylaw 2023-112 being a bylaw to deem part block H and lot 23 of the plan 163 pursuant to section 50 brackets 4 of the Planning Act, not to be on a plan of subdivision. Property roll numbers 4903-020-002-07001 and 4903-020-002-07100. File number D 2023-0008-R. Kalachnik, Fraser, and Kurtz is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Can I have someone move that one, please? Ann and Greg, second, and Greg, all in favor? Okay. And that one's carried. We're getting there. One more. The bylaw number 2023-113 being a bylaw to deem block 10 of plan 42M 567 pursuant to section 50(4) of the Planning Act, not to be on a plan of subdivision. Property roll number 4903-020-002-06930. File number D 2023-0008-R. Kalachinek, Fraser, and Kurtz, I hope I'm getting better with this as I go, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time, passed by council. Can I have a mover? Greg, and seconder is Ken. All in favor? And that's carried. And now I know why the mayor wanted me to do this.
Last one.
That the council and the corporation of the township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application number B 2023-0013-F Weichel, subject to the conditions set out in the decision. Can I have a mover, please? Greg, and a seconder with Gail. And all in favor? And that's passed. And that concludes the business of the public meetings. So
So now you're under the delegation, item 6. And Michael is here. He's on screen. Just ask him.
okay. So that concludes the business of the public meeting, and now we're on to delegations. Michael, I believe you're here. Yep, there he is. With Tatum Engineering to fill us in on the Township of Seguin roads needs study. It's been ongoing. You have the floor, Michael.
Excellent. Thank you, members of council. My apologies for not attending in person as I was intending to, but feeling a little under the weather, so didn't want to bring anything north that might not already be there. So apologies for that, but I do appreciate the opportunity. What we've been asked to undertake is a road needs study for the township. And I'll just start the presentation. Perfect. So the purpose of the road needs study is really to provide an inventory of the township's road system, reflective of the current state of it, and then provide an assessment of that. And through that assessment, we would identify what are the needs for the various road segments, what are the associated improvement strategies, and the costs. And then using that information, how can we create a program to help the township prioritize those road system improvements in a fashion that would provide the most economical and greatest benefit to the municipality. And in completing the inventories, one of the things that we also did was undertake an extensive traffic count program throughout the municipality. So that consisted of a number of intersection counts. And so that allowed us to count 3 or 4 roads at a time. We also placed the traffic tubes across many of the roads to determine 7-day counts. And that allowed us to look at kind of the typical weekday versus the weekend. And all of these counts were completed in the summer period as well, to make sure that the data is reflective of the increased summer volume that the township experiences, given the recreational and cottage nature of some of the areas. And the traffic counts constitute about 25% of the road sections. So we have a pretty good representation of the overall road system. And then for the remaining roads, we simply use the information that was collected and estimated the volumes for that element of the study as well. And then moving forward, we've projected based on what anticipated growth is in the township as to what the future traffic volumes might be. And that kind of reflects population employment growth and development growth in the area as well. And I'll get into how the traffic volumes are used throughout the study and prioritizing the road improvements later in the presentation. The road inventory itself consisted of approximately 385 kilometers of township roads, and each road was subdivided by section. So each section was established in conjunction with township staff to go basically from intersection to intersection. So it allows for a quick and easy reference for the various road sections. And then we've employed procedures from the ministry with respect to inventorying and assessing the roads, and different procedures for different road types with respect to asphalt, surface treated, or gravel, given that they have different characteristics. And we were looking for different things to help establish the needs and identification of improvements. So when you look at the road inventory itself, not surprisingly, the majority of the township road system is rural in nature, with very little in the urban side of things. And likewise, when we look at the classification, as per the township's current official plan, roads are either designated within the township as being a local road or an arterial road. So now keep in mind that the focus was only on the township roads, and we did not include any of the upper tier of the highways. So this is really just the townships. So almost 70% local roads and the remainder are arterial. And this comes into effect when we look at road standards, recognizing that the higher classification road is typically adhered to a greater level of standard, and hence there's a greater cost associated with that. And likewise, a local road, the standards with respect to the time of the improvement is typically different and typically lower than that of an arterial. So you'd be more apt to spend your resources on fixing an arterial road, for instance, that you would as compared to a local road. Now, when we look at the overall road system and the needs and the deficiencies, so when we've undertaken the inventory and assessment, so we had a person drive each road segment within the township and record all the current characteristics and the deficiencies. So we looked at such things as the alignment, the condition of the surface, the type of the surface, how wide it is, how wide the shoulders are, how wide the driving platform is, the environment, whether it's rural, urban, semi-urban, the general topography, is it flat, is it rocky, is it rolling? Those all have bearings, the drainage itself, and how appropriate that drainage is. And then in comparing those existing conditions to set standards, we can identify where the deviations exist or where the deficiencies might exist. So we've worked with township staff to establish what are appropriate standards to apply, and also recognizing that while the road system may not reflect current standards in every aspect, there are certain elements of it that, although they may be slightly deficient of the road standards, they are still considered tolerable. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go out and improve the road system or undertake any additional costs to change it. So what's there is reasonable. It serves the intended purpose. And I'm certainly not going to get into the detail, but this is the level of detail that we've created with respect to the standards. So we look at, again, is it a local road or an arterial road? Is it in the rural or is it in the urban? And then we've created different standards for different characteristics of each road cross section, which comes into play in establishing what those deficiencies are. And then likewise also comes into play in establishing what the improvement strategy is and the associated costs for those. So again, this is something that we've established based on our practices with other municipalities and in conjunction with township staff to make sure that this kind of reflects the Seguin application and not necessarily what MTO might do on a provincial highway for that matter. And the overall basis for the road needs study is what's called the pavement condition index. So that's a reflection or a score out of 100 that speaks to the condition of each road segment. And again, that considers the various distresses. So in the case of an asphalt road, there was 14 different types of distresses that we look at. And then we categorize or rate both the severity and the density. And then right down to the gravel road, I believe there was 7 different distresses that we look at. And it also includes what we call a ride condition rating. So as we drive the road, how do we experience that ride comfort? Is it bumpy? Is it bouncy? Or is it nice and flat and smooth? So that's all taken into account through some numerical analyses to come up with a score out of 100, which is really easy to define and speak to. So when we look at these scores out of 100, these pavement condition indices, you know, for the asphalt road system, we are in pretty good shape. The average is 70. So you can see how that chart portrays that picture with respect to the percent of your asphalt roads. Similarly, when we look at the surface treated roads, again, most of them are in the 70 to 80 plus range, which is again very good condition, not needing a significant amount of improvements. And then the gravel roads painted very much in the same picture. So the average is 75. So overall, out of a score of 100, most of your roads are in that 70 to 75 category on average, which is quite good. When we look at the surface type, so the surface type is really going to be dictated by the type of road classification and also by the traffic volumes. So again, not surprising, many of your roads are rural in nature, many of them are gravel in nature. And of the road sections that we've identified, again, in considering what's tolerable and what really should be in application, we've identified 3 road sections that are currently gravel that, in fact, based on the traffic volumes, should be asphalt. So that's reflected in the overall road system strategy improvements. Likewise, when you look at the surface width, so, you know, as I'm sure you can appreciate, roads within the township vary in width. You've got some that are less than 4 meters in width. You've got some that are greater than 8 meters in width. And that's a function of perhaps when they were created, how they have evolved over time, and again, the traffic volumes on them. So recognizing that the higher volume roads typically have wider travel lanes and the lower volumes are lesser. But generally, we draw the line at about 6 meters. So that's where we want to make sure that we have appropriate width for two-way travel. We want to see a 6 meter road width. So again, we've taken that into account when looking at the assessment data and establishing the needs as it relates to surface width, and how does that get integrated into the overall improvement strategy. Again, if a road is 5 or 5.5 meters and it's functioning fine because it's serving very little traffic, it's not something that we would say to the municipality, you must go out there and widen that extra road, or widen that road an extra half meter or an extra meter, incur all the additional cost, even though for the sake of the volumes that it's currently serving, it's really not necessary. Traffic operations. So from the perspective of the traffic volumes, you know, are there any roads within the township that really need to be widened, that there's so much traffic on them that they just cannot accommodate that? So in context of the volumes that we observed and in context of industry standards with respect to road capacity, I can say that all of your roads are providing a very good level of service based on the traffic volumes. So in that regard, there's really no need to widen any roads, if you will, to provide increased capacity. So when we look at the extent and the severity of the deficiencies and the conditions of the road surface and the other elements that we spoke of, the alignments and the ditching, and then based on comments and information provided by township staff, and in some cases we went out earlier in the spring and through township staff, a number of road segments were identified that traditionally exhibit frost heaving during that winter spring divide. So we were able to undertake the improvement strategies, the field inventories and assessments based on those conditions. So in consideration of all the information that we've collected, we were able to identify what type of deficiencies, and in context of those deficiencies and the degree of deficiencies, establish what the improvement strategies are. You know, and those improvement strategies, they range from obviously doing nothing. It's fine the way it is. It's serving the intended purpose, and there's no need to do anything further, to resurfacing an urban road or to pulverize and resurface a rural road. In some cases, we may need to do some minor repairs to the road base, or the extreme would be do a full reconstruction of the road section. And again, where there was simply a road width issue, all else being acceptable, then you've got a widening issue. Again, that's not something that is considered critical, so not something that we would flag or suggest that the township pursue in context of more important improvements. So when we take the snapshot of the overall road system, 385 kilometers, about 60% by length, has no identified deficiencies, or there is no need to undertake any improvements. And that means that the 40% remaining has some type of identified improvement strategies required. And for the most part, reflecting that your roads are traditionally rural, and gravel and surface treated. Pulverize and resurface is the primary improvement strategy. So that's very cost effective in the sense that the road base that is currently there is being reutilized. We're simply going to reinvigorate the surface, add some additional gravel material to help strengthen it and support it, and then put a new surface on. And that surface would be consistent with what's currently in place. So if it's currently asphalt, they would reinstate it with asphalt. If it's gravel, it would remain as gravel. Unless, as I mentioned, that road surface is not appropriate in context of the traffic volumes that are being served. So once we've identified the improvement strategies, then what we've done is establish what those improvement costs are going to be. So that's largely based on the MTO's costing methodology with respect to unit prices and quantities. We're looking at the standards that I spoke of as to how wide a road is, how deep or what's the depth of the granulars that we're looking at. And then local construction costs within the township as provided by township staff to make sure that the dollars that we're providing are reflective of your current market and current practice within the township. So when we look at the overall road system and we put costs to all of the improvements that we've identified, there's in the order of $58 million worth of improvements required over the next 10-year period. So that equates to just under $6 million per year on average. And again, as we had mentioned, most of the improvement strategies are the pulverize and resurface. So you can see the bulk of the improvement costs are within that category. So now we have a listing of roads that require improvements and associated costs. The next element of the study was to prioritize the manner in which those road improvements should be implemented. So we've established the time of need based on the current condition. We've established what the traffic volumes are, and we've established what the cost of those road improvements is likely to be. And now in consideration of all that, we're able to come up with a priority ranking or rating to help guide the municipality in implementing those road improvements. So the premise on that is if you have two road sections that say both would cost $1 million to improve and one serves more traffic volumes than the other, well, then you're best served to put the money in that's going to serve the most motorists. So you're going to get the best benefit for the dollar spent. So that's kind of what this aspect of the study takes into account. So at the end of the day, we've provided an overall listing. You know, this is just a snapshot of it. So we've ranked all the improvements from 1 down to whatever the final number was, if you will, identified within that 10-year program where those improvements should follow, and then provided all the necessary information to township staff that would allow them to come up with a capital program to reflect that improvement. The next step for township staff would be to look at that prioritization listing as a tool, as a first cut, as an input into the capital program. And then obviously that will be very much dictated by the availability of funds. And then other aspects that need to be considered in establishing what that overall program would be are such things as the continuity of construction. So, you know, I mentioned that each road is broken into sections from intersection to intersection to intersection. So it would be prudent if we have two sections that are side by side or very close in proximity, that the improvements of those be implemented at the same time. When in fact, based on the priority, one might be year one and the other section might be year 2 or year 3. So this is where the township staff would look at that and say, no, it makes most sense that we would all undertake all of those improvements as one infrastructure improvement program. And then likewise, if there are other infrastructure needs within the township, if they are urban sections, for instance, if there's any underground sewers, sidewalks, curbs that need to be improved because they are also at the end of their useful life, and that makes sense to coordinate any of the road improvements with any other infrastructure improvements in considering the appropriate timing for each. And then lastly, consideration also needs to be given to any development implications. So if there are major developments ongoing within the township that are going to have bearing on that particular road section, then that should be taken into consideration such that you're not improving a road only to have it be traveled by construction traffic for the next 2 or 3 or 5 years as a new subdivision is being constructed and implemented. Now, the $58 million obviously is a large number, and it is recognized that the township will have limited funds to address that and to maintain the road system. So some of the improvement strategies to address that we've worked with other townships is to really scale back on some of the improvement strategies or the extent to which they are implemented. So rather than undertaking full road reconstructions, albeit in this case for Seguin, it's very limited with respect to the amount of roads that need to be fully reconstructed. But is there an opportunity to simply scale that full reconstruction back a little bit and perhaps to that pulverize and resurface to make sure that the road is passable? Is there any flexibility within the road standards themselves to reduce them again to make sure that we're using the available funds to the extent possible? And then there could also be consideration for that road surface. So in many cases, the road surface that is currently on your road system or the individual road segments actually exceeds the minimum road surface type that would be necessary based on the traffic volumes. So for instance, your roads may have surface treated when gravel would suffice, or they're asphalt when surface treated would suffice. So one option would be to say, when we introduce the improvements, that we are going to reinstate only the minimum surface type versus reinstating what is otherwise currently there. So that's an option that some of our municipal clients have undertaken as well. So that's really the snapshot of the road needs study itself. We've provided a draft report, which includes a number of appendices and tables and summarizes and ranks all the road system improvements based on the numerical field inventories and assessments and calculations. As I said, then that would be available for use by township staff to create that capital program. Other aspects of the overall road needs study that we're looking at include a review of the road classifications. So I did mention that as per the township's current official plan, township roads are classified as either locals or arterial roads. So that collector road in the middle, which is typical of connecting the locals to the arterials, that is absent within the township. And so we're just looking at that. Providing some recommendations as to whether a collector road system should be established within the township, and if so, what are the standards for that? Looking at the overall road system as a whole, establishing any shortcomings, any areas where roads should perhaps be extended or improved to make sure the continuity of the system. You know, that's very, very intuitive when you have a grid system street network. Albeit in Seguin, it's very much what I would consider like the spider system, where everything goes out, and the vast number of lakes and water bodies that you have are obviously very restrictive to the continuity of roads. That obviously takes into consideration. Haul routes, we are looking at those as to which roads should be identified or could be identified as haul routes. And if that is the case, what is the appropriate standard for those? And what is the ensuing level of improvement that might be necessary to ensure their continued use as a haul road over the course of their life We've also started an inventory of private roads within the township. Just however, those private roads that are within municipal rights of way, with the intent of identifying, again, their current status and what would be required in order to bring those up to proper municipal standards and the associated costs for such. And then just providing a general review of road standards and policies that are currently in place within the township that have been used to guide the study and that can be used to help implement the study towards the future. That will all be wrapped up in our final report for submission for review also. That, I believe, summarizes the road needs study part of it that we wanted to present to council. And certainly if there's any questions, I would be more than happy to entertain.
Councillor Bazinski has a question for you, sir.
Thank you. Just on your last point about private roads and municipal rights of ways, what criteria are you going to use to rank them in terms of priority?
To be honest, I haven't got to that point. I'll speak with Tom as to what the objective of that might be. Certainly the intent is to identify what improvements are going to be necessary to bring them up to municipal standards. And I guess from that would be a municipal next step, if you will.
Yeah, thank you. So the purpose and the intent of this exercise, excuse me, is just to get the overall budget or kind of a dollar figure, because several times a year we get a lot of inquiries on how much these private roads are going to cost to upgrade. And if we have I'm not going to say a ballpark figure, but you know, a good figure to give some of these people, because right now our bylaw currently states that it's on the onus of the benefiting owners, meaning who's going to benefit from upgrading this. They're the ones on the hook to pay this. So we thought this was a good step. I believe this was addressed at a previous council meeting. I'm going to say about a year and a half ago. This is a while ago, where we kind of want to do an assessment of our private roads within municipal right of ways. There's obviously a lot of private roads out there on private property, so those are not being addressed because those are a little bit more above and beyond the current scope, whereas this is kind of a low-hanging fruit. We can go see the existing condition, and Michael and his team can address what that cost is to upgrade a road, so we have some information that we can give to ratepayers. Did I answer the question?
Pretty much, yes. I'm just wondering if you're going to use, say, the number of year-round residents on those private roads as one of the criteria to determine priorities? Or you don't have to say yes or no right now. It might be something for you to consider.
So,
Jason like to weigh in here.
yeah, thank you. I think at this point, Councillor Brzezinski, what we're learning is there's a fairly significant capital undertaking to maintain the road infrastructure that we already have on our books. And while this exercise of reviewing the roads on unassumed or unopened road allowances is really, really important information, I don't imagine that you'll see any recommendations in the very short term to make any moves to upgrade those until such time as we get the remainder of the roadway network to an acceptable standard.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. You've always had a capital roads budget and a maintenance roads budget on an annual basis over a 10-year period. This particular plan, roads study plan, is saying that your budget in the first year, if we were to take this on, you're looking at 6 million per year. And that, I guess, would be your full budget or just your capital roads budget versus your maintenance budget, because it's split in two, correct? The roads, Tom?
Okay. Yes. So as Michael alluded to earlier, we can adjust it according to plan, whether if there's an arterial road that's acting as a local road, we can kind of scale it back. And to be frank, this is where I got to do some work. Once the draft or once the road needs plan is finalized, then I really have to take a good hard look at how we're going to move forward, navigate this responsibly and realistically, because there's a big deficit here that we need to address.
Yeah, well, that's always been the issue in the past, is the budget that's been that was given to the capital roads and maintenance. It was mixed up. It wasn't split in any way. But and we're looking at here a 10-year program as well, correct? If we just start moving forward with this, it's a 10-year plan, correct? Tom?
Yes, that's correct.
So we're looking at 6 million a year. Yeah. Okay. There was just one other question I had, and none of the study mentioned any bus routes. And I'm wondering why, because there are a number of school buses that go through the area, and I'm wondering why that just wasn't mentioned.
Michael, did we ever chat about that? Did we ever get a list?
I don't believe so, but certainly school buses would have been captured in the traffic volumes themselves, but correct, we have not identified which roads are designated as school bus routes. But again, we certainly can work with the township, do that, and perhaps put some more onus on those particular road sections requiring improvements.
Yes, because in the past, I've always argued, I guess, about the maintenance of Tally-Ho Swords Road that comes into Oroville. And I can remember going back just prior to me being a counselor, when one of the school buses flipped over on its side because of maintenance. And thank God there was nobody injured. But I've always said to who's ever doing the roads is that Tally-Ho Swords Road is a windy, uphill, downhill road, and it needs to be properly maintained, not only in the summer but in the winter as well. So I don't know what you would categorize that road as. Is that an artillery road, or what would you classify Tally-Ho Swords Road as?
You're correct. Yeah.
Moving the yardsticks forward. What would you classify that as?
So looking at them, I think you're correct. It is an arterial.
Mm. Yeah, because I think years ago it was class 6, right? Yeah, class 6. All right. Okay, thank you.
Just to follow up on a point you brought up, Councillor Collins, the $6 million, and I'll look to Tom and Michael just to confirm here, the $6 million number that's presented in this presentation and in this document is a capital improvement program. It does not include the daily operations and maintenance requirements. I'm looking up and I see Michael nodding. So the $6 million is strictly the capital budget. It is not a blend of the capital and the operating, the maintenance. So there are two different budget lines that you'll see eventually. One of which is capital improvements. This is identifying that program over the next 10 years. The maintenance and operating budget, which is our salaries, our fuel, the trucks, et cetera, is a separate budget item under our operating budget.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Getty?
Thank you. Michael, thank you for the report. I found it very informative. My only question, I don't know if it's a question for you or whether this is a question that will fall back to Tom after the final report. Obviously, the biggest cost to us will be the 141.4 kilometers that have been identified for pulverize and resurface. I'm just wondering, in the final report, will you, I know that you set a priority of what should be addressed, what road should be addressed in what order, or generally based on the criteria that you had. I'm just wondering, in those 141.4, will they be graded with optimally, a total pulverize and resurface would be the best for that road section, but are some of those areas able to be treated in a different way to potentially reduce some of those costs, not knowing what the total process is for pulverize and resurface? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And if I may, certainly that strategy where we look at different standards has been used by other municipalities, and it's typically been, rather than reconstruct, we're going to pulverize and resurface. That we can certainly look at the standards that have been applied within our investigations and costing to determine the appropriateness of those, and is there any ability to go to a lesser standard, if you will. What we've assumed is we're going to pulverize it. We're going to add 50 millimeters or 2 inches of granular A, new granular material on top of it to give it some more structural integrity, to help with the grading, and then the new surface on top. So whether that additional granular needs to be added to each road segment, that might be a function of, what level of granular is currently there. And then again, we can look at the road surface itself. Are we reinstating what's there, or are we going to reinstate only the minimum if they're different? So if it's asphalt, but it really only needs to be gravel, are we going to put another asphalt surface on it? And then if so, are we going to put 1 lift of asphalt or 2 lifts of asphalt? Which again, can all be considered in establishing what that final improvement strategy is. The limitation of the road needs study for the most part is it's based on a visual inspection of the roads and the current conditions. And as you proceed to the next step where you're doing more detailed investigations with respect to what improvement and the extent of that, any geotechnical information is going to be valuable in establishing or confirming the finding as well. So hopefully those geotechnicals would yield that, yes, this road section has a lot of gravel, so perhaps we can add a little bit less, or contrary, it has very little, so maybe we need to be adding a little bit more.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I just want to know, when do you think we'll know what roads are going to be priority for like the first year or something? When are we going to know that?
Mike, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, the priority listings now are included in the appendix to the draft report. So subject to any comments that may come out of the presentation today, I don't expect that those are going to change much. The remaining elements in the study will not or should not have any bearing on the rankings of the improvements. Now, I will qualify that, and the only possible change, but I don't believe it will have much of an impact, is again, if we are going to look at introducing a collector road classification and a collector road standards, that may slightly alter, again, to what degree the improvements are going to be undertaken and hence to what cost, but I wouldn't expect that that's going to significantly change any of the rankings or overall ratings.
Thank you, Councillor Budzinski. Next question.
I was just wondering, this month I'm very sensitized to access points. And did you consider the end of the road? For example, the Rosso area, the road goes into a large asphalt parking area, or Otter Lake at the marina, it also has parking associated with it. Are those included in the study, or are those part of somebody else's budget for facilities?
Those would not have been included in the study. So what we have done is identify, well, the road is X meters long and it's X meters wide, and that's the improvement strategy, and that's the associated cost. So if there's anything, I'll call it special or other treatments beyond the standard road, then that would be an additional cost to the improvements identified.
Thank you. Councillor Collins, I think, has one question.
Yeah, thank you. And yes, I know that Seguin Township has been waiting for quite some time for a needs road study plan. And I'm glad that it's finally materialized. Are you thinking of putting this or implementing this in the budget for 2024, Tom?
So, yes, so I'm gonna put a line item in there for some engineering. So I'm just gonna look at this first one. So I see Osler Park Drive is in there. I currently have a project shelf, which we're actually going after some grant funding as well. To assist the road, because it is very, very expensive. And next year we may be able to do 1 or 2 roads, go after funding, because we have detailed design complete. It's another avenue for us to offset some cost as well. So yes, I plan on starting it in 2024 if approved by everyone on council.
Yes, thanks, Tom, for that, because it is essential. It is a needs. Our infrastructure is so very important, and we're finally at this stage that we could do something about it. So thanks, Tom, for that, and thanks, Mike, for this report. Thank you very much.
Anyone else have any other questions, comments? Okay, I say the best for last. I have a couple. So I'm looking at, first of all, Michael, thank you very much for this report. I read it with great interest, and I was very pleased to see the depth of the review and the factors that were taken into consideration. I was sort of intrigued by the one, it wasn't a map, it's a schematic, I guess, of our road system, and just looking at it with a knowledge of the township that I have. Of course, one of the sort of the low hanging fruit to making a capital investment in the road structure is if it's done properly, you're going to reap the benefit of perhaps some lower maintenance costs. And when I look at the township as a whole, the topography is not consistent throughout the whole township. There's areas of the township that the topography is much, the variances, the grades are much steeper. The change in elevation is much more in certain areas of the township. Then you roll out to other areas where it's fairly flat, and of course that will greatly influence the cost of reconstruction, correct? It also greatly influences the cost of maintenance. It's harder to plow, it's harder to grade, it's got more washout. So I'm wondering, where do you, when you make the assertion of what we should be surface treating and what we should perhaps leave as a granular wearing surface, where are you taking that into account? Like the cost to maintain versus, if we make this capital investment in this particular section of road, it's going to result in a lower maintenance cost. That's sort of my first question. And my second one just was maybe more for Tom, that when we passed the recreational trail plan and alternate transportation plan last year, we identified quite a few roads that we wanted to widen for for recreational purposes, and have you taken that into account? Is that gonna be something that is part and parcel with this, or is that gonna be something that's separate? I guess is what I'm asking. So 2 questions. Either one of you can take them on, don't care.
Okay, I can certainly try. The road surface itself, so the identification of the appropriate road surface is based on the road classification and then traffic volumes. So I believe it was, anything less than 400 vehicles a day would be adequately served by a gravel road. Anything more than 1,000 vehicles a day should be asphalt. Now, to your point, certainly when you get into extreme topography, then yes, having a gravel surface on a sharp hill does not bode well for the long-term maintenance. So we haven't necessarily identified those elements within the study specifically, but certainly other townships will say asphalt an extreme grade, if you will. The overall topography, so this road section is in a flat section, this road section is in a steep, rocky section, that has been taken into account when we established the cost. So I'd mentioned the MTO methodologies. So under that methodology, we establish here's a basic road cross section, and here's the cost of the granulars and the cost of the excavation and the cost of the surface. And then here's various factors, one of which reflects the topography and the conditions. So if it's nice and flat, it's going to have a low factor. If it's rocky, rugged, hilly, then it has a higher factor. So the overall condition is captured in the road costs, but looking at implementing different surface types for the longer term benefit from maintenance is not necessarily. And then I can speak to the active transportation. I know that's something we've had some initial dialogues with Tom about. So I think that's really the next step here is the road needs study has identified based on the applicable standards where the deficiencies are. And I think what we can readily and easily do is make one further distinction and say, okay, these are the these are the roads within the township that have been identified for active transportation, which mean that they need to have, say, a 1.5 meter hard surface shoulder. So we can readily implement that standard into this program and establish any incremental cost. So we've kept it separate intentionally, such that we can come back and say, yes, if this is what we want to do with respect to active transportation, here's the incremental costs that will be incurred.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other questions? Again, thank you very much, both of you, for the presentation, and I think very good first document. We've all got our work cut out for us. Thanks very much.
Excellent, my pleasure. All.
That the council of the corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda for the October 16th, 2023 meeting of council. Can I have someone to move this, please? Moved by Ann, seconded by Mario. All in favor? That's carried. The first one up is the draft strategic plan. I see we have 2 distinguished members of the staff here to speak to this, so I'll just turn that over to them.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, Chair, Council. We're delighted to present the draft, very much draft, strategic plan. You'll notice the format itself is very much in draft form. So what will be delivered at the end of the day will be far more graphically pleasing. But we're very pleased to present the content, the idea, and kind of how to interpret the structure.
So when we set out on this project about 6 months ago, there we go. Sorry, new to the microphone. We had a few goals as staff leads. We wanted to create a document that was clear, concise, current, and high level. And essentially, we want to create a modern document that people will read and will create a really clear roadmap for this term of council and beyond.
And this might seem a bit intuitive, this slide, but we thought it might be helpful to kind of remind the typical parts of the strategic plan and how this strategic plan differs in part to previous strategic plans. You will see the standard mission, vision, values, and goals, but what has been added is a bucket, if you will, called foundations, as well as guiding documents and a corresponding operational plan. And in regard to vision, this is who we strive to become, and mission, which is often confused for vision, is what we do now and who we currently serve. And this idea of foundations, these are themes that are baked right into the core fabric of the corporation. They are identity pieces. They are foundational elements in the true sense of the word. The values are how the township approaches daily operations, and including short-term and long-term decision-making. The goals are the broad objectives, not to be confused with operational work plan items, but the broad objectives. And guiding documents, these are the documents that guide us in our decision-making, similar to the roads needs study that we just listened to. And the operational plan are the individual actions that help us operationalize the goals set forth within the goals section. And it can be visualized in this pyramid, if you will, where the very bottom is the foundation. This slide is not in the deck that you all have received. We just made it. We thought a visual might be useful and kind of understanding the difference between goals and foundations. And this is the kind of the theme on which everything else is based. Then the goals above that are the objectives to realize our vision, and then the values of how we make decisions. And the vision is what we strive to be or become.
So this process began several months ago with engagement exercises that staff led with the community. So we were very fortunate to get a very positive response to our request for community input on this plan, which we are very grateful for. So we began next door because we wanted to engage the youth in the project. And we invited grade 7 and 8 students in, and they gave us terrific insight on what they would like to see from their community now and in the years to come. We also reached out to the high school. We didn't have as much response from them. They were in exams, but it was good food for thought that there was a positive response and interest in that. We launched a youth survey, which was on our engagement site. We also had paper surveys at community events at which youth were involved. We had a community online survey, which was also available in paper format, and those ran for several months. And we had a few thought leader sessions, and these were in-person workshops with stakeholders from various sectors in our community. We sat down with them for a couple of hours and talked with them about the various components of this plan. They represented business leaders, education leaders, folks in the healthcare system. And lastly, we had valuable insights from the Finance Committee. They looked at our questions on the survey and gave their response to the inquiries. So we have lots of notes, but the high level findings were that there was consistency from all participants that the environment was top priority for many. So that was found in the survey. Close to 80% of folks said that was the thing they're most proud of, is our natural features in the environment, our commitment to the environment. Our thought leaders echoed those sentiments. However, they were much more focused on youth engagement. They talked about building leadership capacity within the township. They talked about transportation needs, the need for more spaces to meet, to connect, in particular for youth. There was a lot of focus on building partnerships with organizations like DSAB within our schools, with healthcare. The library was also a key priority in our conversations, and there was lots of really great feedback about more programming, education, health, and the like.
And the consultant-led engagements, who you'll remember was Karen Wynecki. She did several engagements, one of which, and actually there's another one. Oh no, you added that. Yeah, there was the in-person session in Orville, which all of you participated in, along with quite a number of staff. There was an online session put on by Karen with the senior management team. And then there were the individual conversations that you all had with Karen over the phone. And so very similarly, the findings through the council engagement and staff engagement for that matter, it paralleled. It very much paralleled. And so overall, council's priorities mirrored to a T. And in fact, they even paralleled what the youth engagements suggested. So essentially, position the township as regional leaders. That's very important. Continue to prioritize the environment, develop responsibly, and refine our identity.
Okay, so here's the draft content based on all of that engagement that we did. So our draft vision, what we strive to become: a bold, prosperous, and collaborative community that positions itself as a leader in balancing growth and well-being with environmental stewardship. The mission, and this is what we believe we're doing right now and who we're serving right now. Seguin Township uses a collaborative approach to deliver efficient, high-quality services informed by our corporate values and expertise to enhance day-to-day life for everyone in our community.
And then we get into the foundations. And to reiterate, this is the basis for which everything else is built. And so foundation number one is to prioritize the environment. Very much like the first vertical in council's previous strategic plan was to protect the environment and consider the environment in what we do. And this is to invest in climate change related initiatives that protect and preserve our natural environment, as well as community health and well-being. Foundation 2 is to invest in our team. Continue to recruit, develop, retain a diverse and high-performing team, focusing on knowledge transfer and succession planning. Foundation 3 is to lead with integrity and a commitment to modern services. Through demonstrated excellence, transparency, and ethics, continue to advance organizational modernization by promoting progressive planning and service delivery automation. And Foundation 4 is to practice fiscal responsibility. Trusted with the taxpayer dollar, make decisions and plan for a healthy financial future, investing responsibly, and utilizing funding resources when possible. And lastly, Foundation 5 is to engage our community, bring people together through opportunities that support tourism, heritage, the arts and wellness while inspiring residents to get involved through impactful storytelling.
Okay, so our values, the first value we landed on is collaboration. We recognize that our organization, businesses, and region thrive when people from diverse backgrounds with broad experiences come together to create solutions that help everyone live, work, and play better. The second value is innovation. We are committed to forward-thinking processes, services, perspectives, and solutions to achieve excellence today and into the future. Our third value is inclusion. We encourage and value all voices in our community from diverse backgrounds and identities, whether they have been here for days, decades, live here seasonally, or all year. Our fourth value, balance. As stewards of the environment, we are committed to balancing growth and the health of our natural surroundings. We are also committed to maintaining transparency and investing responsibly.
And now we're into the goals section. So these 3 goals are categorized by lead, grow, and connect. And so the priorities within lead are to advocate for infrastructure and services that support a healthy, active, and engaged community. Work with community organizations that address inequities to understand and address the needs of underrepresented individuals and groups. Advocate to other levels of government to address issues that matter to Seguin residents. And lastly, support the well-being of residents of all ages. Goal 2, grow. Advocate for more attainable housing options. Create opportunities for businesses to establish and thrive in Seguin Township for the long term. Create opportunities to be an attractive tourism destination. And expand infrastructure and services to meet emerging needs. And goal 3, connect. Remove transportation barriers faced by residents. Strengthen our identity to ensure we accurately represent our community. Explore opportunities to work with the library as a community partner and community builder. Advance reconciliation with Indigenous communities. And identify opportunities to provide additional support services to newcomers.
So as Forrest outlined at the onset of this presentation, all these components of the strategic plan are going to be guided by documents and plans that are in the works or are complete. So our official plan, the asset management plan, zoning bylaw, the Seguin Township Public Library strategic plan, the MOU between us and Wissahickon, conservation and demand management plan, active transportation plan, and climate action plans, procurement bylaw, the waste management strategy, the road needs study, which we just saw, Seguin Township leadership statement, the Perry Sound area municipal airport and business, and that is a mouthful, the strategic plan for the airport, the multi-year accessibility plan, and the IT strategy. And then we also have some upcoming projects that will definitely inform the plan, including the Parks, Recreation and Culture Master Plan, the Fire Master Plan, a Branding and Marketing Plan, and the Youth Engagement Plan.
And we started talking briefly about the operational plan. So historically speaking, the line between strategic and operational was there was less of a line drawn. By truly separating the operational side of the plan from the strategic side allows greater flexibility in the plan, makes it quite a bit easier to add and remove things as the years tick along and as we work towards those various goals. But some of these sample projects include the development of an engagement and support strategy for both youth and seniors, develop a marketing and branding strategy, explore attainable partnerships opportunities with DSAB and or public-private partnerships, act on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission CTA recommendations, complete a natural asset management inventory and incorporate into the township's asset management plan, support the airport's business plans for expansion and development, complete a parks, recreation, and culture master plan, including beautification, collaborate with partners to implement camp programs and childcare within the municipality, and develop a strategy to address the adverse impacts of invasive species. And again, these are sample projects, and in large part, the projects that you will see in the draft operational plan, these came from all of the engagements specifically, either from yourselves, the thought leaders, the public surveys, the youth engagement surveys, and the thought leaders.
So now we have these documents on our Let's Connect page, and they're currently being reviewed by anyone and everyone who's interested, in particular those who participated in our engagement sessions. We hope that they take a look and see if they feel reflected. And we would like to have a discussion about the document and your thoughts on it next week on the 23rd at Ross Memorial Hall. I don't think I'm allowed to do the invitation.
And with that being said, that's the end of our presentation for today. Obviously, there's going to be more to be said next week, but we thank you.
I know there.
Councillor Collins has Councillor Collins has a question.
Just one. The strategic plan that you've just discussed here and brought forward to us is mentions 2023 and beyond. There's a lot of work here, and that beyond it is not a 5-year plan, obviously, right? So you're looking at beyond, you're looking at maybe 10 years down the road, or is that so we're not doing this every 5 years, obviously, is that?
That's a very good question, Councillor Collins. The objective is to create a high level, long-term plan with the strategic plan. Perhaps it needs to be just revised slightly during the next term of council. It's hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
The operational plan is looking at a shorter runway.
Yep. No, great idea. Great idea. I love the word beyond. Thank you very much.
Councillor Brzezinski.
I just want to make one quick comment for your consideration for next week. Under the foundations, prioritizing the environment. I think I see a little bit of bias of one of the authors on the climate change aspect. And while that's very laudable, I think you may want to consider that when Seguin came together and they developed their first official plan, they had working groups in a variety of different functions. They had a watershed one, they had an urban one, they had a whole variety of groups. The key focus was on protecting and preserving the natural environment. It had a lot to do with the type of development that would be allowed and so on. So while I would agree with you that climate change is important, you may want to consider some aspects. I know the official plan protects the environment, you know, when you look at development, but even in a strategic plan, I mean, the lakes and the recreation aspects are what makes Seguin great. So perhaps give a little bit of thought to how we could add that in to not just climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So I have a question. In its final version, how long a document are you contemplating? How long is this vision document going to be?
The actual plan without the operational plan will not be much longer than what you've seen if we proceed down this road with your approval. It will not, we want something that is concise and clear.
Right. Because if I remember correctly, when we went down this road 5 years ago, the current strat plan that we had been sort of added to and amended yearly. And it was a very long, unwieldy type of document that led a person to be slightly more confused after they finished reading it than they were when they started. And a strat plan is basically a vision document. An ops plan is more of a tactical plan. That's how you're going to execute the vision in the strat plan. So I'm just sort of interested to know that it's going to be fairly short and concise. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Well done. That the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby call a special meeting of council for Monday, October 23rd, 2023 at 11:30 a.m. to be held at the Russell Memorial Hall to review the draft strategic plan. I got a mover and a seconder, moved by Ann, seconded by Ken. All in favor? Yes. That was carried.
Can everybody come?
Oh, now that we passed it, is everybody available to come? Or is anybody not available? Greg? Does that mean you're coming or you're not? Oh, okay. I'm gonna miss you, buddy. Okay, that's carried.
Thank you. Great.
Mr. Chair, before you move on. Well, I have council's attention and we're still talking about strategic plan, and despite the fact that those two just walked out the door, I did want to just take a moment and acknowledge the great work that both Valerie and Forrest, along with Stephanie from the libraries, have put into putting that plan together, along with Karen Winicki, the consultant who assisted with some of the engagement stuff. No small body of work over the last number of months, and we're really looking forward to your detailed feedback next week, where we can really dive into the details and make sure that we do set that vision you were talking about for the beyond just this year. So we're looking forward to next week's meeting, and I did want to just acknowledge that's a heavy workload that those folks have carried on the last number of months, and they've done an excellent job.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Inwood. It was a very good presentation. Yeah. Senior management, okay. The bylaw number 2023-114, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 98-03, being a bylaw to establish procedures for the sale of real property owned by the municipality, has been deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. And I need someone to move this, please. Moved by Ken, seconded by Greg. All in favor? And that's passed. Jeffrey, Mr. Clerk, you can have that back. The bylaw number 2023-115. We just amended this thing, didn't we? Being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2003-03. Being a bylaw to prescribe the form and manner and times for the provision of notice under the Municipal Act is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time, passed by council. I had someone like to move that. Moved by Mario, second by Greg. All in favor? And that's passed. I think that's your business, is it not? Okay. Your documents are very wordy. Yeah, I know it's Dominique, but Dominique, are you here?
Yes, I am.
So Dominique, you have a report for us? I don't need to do any. This is just information. So you have a report that you'd like to give council, and you have the
This
floor.
is Yeah, it's just a standard drinking water report. So this just acknowledges that we've done our duty monthly testing and all of our samples came back normal and no adverse samples during the period from January to July. So it's all good.
Any questions for Dominique? Thank you, Dominique.
You're welcome.
Next up, this is for information as well, Mr. Clerk. Okay. Next up, we have Development of Protective Services. We have a report in response to a request for private docking at Russell's waterfront. Taylor, would you like to, this your baby? Yeah.
I guess so. Dominique and I co-authored this report. This is a response to a private citizen's request to put additional private docking slips on Rosso Bay. Staff's stance on this is that we don't think we should do it at this juncture. There's already several private structures on that public shoreline. And if anything, this should be further considered if we proceed with a waterfront strategy or master plan.
Thank you, Taylor. Any questions, comments? Mayor McDermott?
Just a question about how this is going to go back to the private group that attached or contacted us. Just what's the next step?
Depending on what council says, I will email them the response and how we see this unfolding in the future.
Okay, thank you. And I would say, from my point of view, go ahead, let them know that we'll be talking about it on our waterfront strategy.
Councillor Brzezinski?
Just wondering, and I don't think Taylor's the right person, it might be Rory, but is there any further issue with overnight parking at the docks in Rosso and so on? Has anyone from bylaw sort of checked on that?
Mayor McDermott?
I can tell you that during the summer months, the lifeguards were taking pictures all along. We didn't have any big complaints. And I believe notices were left on a few boats, but it's almost impossible to ticket them because we don't know who they own. A boat license doesn't tell you who owns it like a car license does.
So that was the issue. There was 3 or 4 that were there all summer and there was no way of contacting them. But other than that, we didn't have many full days where there were no spots for anybody.
Councillor Adams?
Where would they like these docks?
They did draw a picture of where
I've
they'd
seen
like to it would be attached to township land if you took their request properly.
They realize there is a marina next door, that we're taking business away from a marina.
Exactly. And the marina, as of 2 weeks ago, did not sell out of his rentable spaces during this past summer. So there were available spaces at his docks.
And there's only 11 and there's a lot more people in Rosso than 11. So you give 11.
But the part of the issue is that they want docking 24/7 all summer. So they want private docking. Part of the issue is they want it only for them. And that just isn't how it works. I tried to explain, but it didn't work very well. So I think this is, I think this is a good plan going forward, just to look at the entire waterfront. I think it's a good way to look at it with a bigger lens, right? And just to make the point clearer going forward, I think.
Agreed. Anyone else comment?
Yeah, but you just have to take into consideration. You do it for one settlement area, you're gonna have to do it for all 4 settlement areas.
Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, and I think Councillor Collins' point is exactly right. If we set a precedent in one area, we better be prepared to do it in all areas. And I wouldn't recommend to this council, we shouldn't take that approach until we've got a proper vision of what that might look like and how we want to manage our waterfronts into the future. Council, you made that clear during the strategic planning exercises. It's been included in the tactical plan that we'll debate again next week. But I think your point is very strong, Councillor Collins, in that we don't want to start precedents without making sure we have a very clear vision on what the pathway is we're headed down.
Anyone else? Okay, we're into business now, ladies and gentlemen. That the council of the corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby authorize the following members of council to attend the 2024 Annual Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities FONOM Conference being held May 6th to May 8th, 2024 at the Holiday Inn and Suites in Sudbury, Ontario. Reimbursement of expenses will be as per township policy. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Brzezinski. And we need, yeah, so now, who would like to go to the to Sudbury in May? Councillor Adams would.
Just get out of Councillor Adams.
Where do I put him?
Just here.
No.
Councillor Adams.
How do you spell Councillor?
You can't actually spell it wrong. It's both ways.
Okay, Councillor Adams, Mayor McDermott. Mayor Ann. Anyone else? It's a good conference. I went last year. It was.
You can put your own name down.
Well, you know what, maybe I'll go. You're going to another one, right? Yeah, okay. So Fellner, I'm not even gonna tackle Councillor anymore. Okay. So we have Councillor Adams, myself and Mayor Ann McDermott are gonna go to the Phenom Conference. Is everybody comfortable with that? All in favor? And that's passed. Always like Sudbury.
By the mayor, so you can blame her.
Oh, okay. I gotta read this whole thing out. Yeah, no wonder she invited me to this today. Okay, whereas float homes have become a great and growing concern for Ontario municipalities, include navigable waters frontage in that they affect the environment, character, health, safety, and overall enjoyment of those waters and abutting lands. And whereas float homes would include floating accommodations or any accommodations of building structures or things that can be floated into place that are used for overnight and extended accommodation and are not designed primarily for navigation. And whereas Transport Canada currently deems these float homes to be vessels in Ontario while having a float homes regulation in British Columbia since 2001. And whereas federal regulations regarding vessels take precedence over any provincial and municipal regulations concerning float homes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby request the Honorable Pablo Rodriguez, Minister of Transport, to strongly urge Transport Canada to update their regulations regarding float homes to include float homes that are not connected to municipal services, and that such regulations be valid across Canada, and that such float homes not be considered vessels, such that they become subject to applicable provincial and municipal regulations. And be it further resolved that this request to the minister be copied to the Honorable Graydon Smith, Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry of Ontario, and Parry Sound, Muskoka MPP, and Scotty Atchison, Parry Sound, Muskoka MP. May I have someone to move this? Okay, moved by Mayor McDermott, seconded by Councillor Adams. Sorry, Greg, didn't see you there. All in favor? And that's passed. My word, amicable sort today. Nice to see you. Must be the firm control of the chair. Next up,
Stay, we just,
or
there's a memo in the package. there's a memo in your package about Remembrance Day services, and we just need to know who on council is attending which ceremonies.
I'll be attending Orville, as I have for the last 9 years.
What are we doing? I got you a good trumpet player for Orville again this year.
I'll do Rosso.
Gail is in Rosso.
And again,
What's the date again? What's the date again?
for which one?
For the Remembrance Day services.
Well, like Foley is November 5th.
Yeah.
Orville's the 11th. Humphreys the 10th. And Rosso is the 11th.
Foley's the 5th.
Yeah,
fifth.
generally it's the ward counselor if they can be.
Yeah, so Foley, you two gentlemen are available to go? No? I'll go with you, Ken, if it's okay, because I'm not gonna be here for the rest of them, so. No way. You let me come to yours? Okay. I'm gonna go to Foley.
So
I don't,
just to confirm, then we have
Go
Counselor
ahead.
Collins for Orville, Counselor Getty for the Humphrey Public School, Mayor McDermott and Counselor Vincent for Rosso, and Counselor Adams and Counselor Fellner for Foley.
Yep.
Thank you.
Don't forget to pick up your wreaths.
Sorry, good point, Mayor. So staff will be in touch with the information on how to pick up the wreaths and
okay. Now, moving along. Oh, no, yes, I know, yeah, I know, I got the wrong page up here. Okay, so in business. We have a request, we have an additional item. Number D, the long access arm of Otter Lake. Or the long arm of Otter Lake access point from Counselor Bazinski.
Thank you. I'll try to be quick. We've had some issues this summer. The long arm access point is the only access point on Otter Lake that a contractor can use to move large material. And there was a contractor who's been doing septic system installations for water access cottagers. So there are a lot of water access cottagers on Otter Lake. Now, actually, we didn't have a float house built. We had, it's not a house, it's like a float boathouse. I don't know, I think it's from the company in town. They have, they put out pontoons and they build a 2-story. So there's the main level, you've got parking for 2 watercraft, and on the second level, the last one was a big bar. And I saw 17 people on the one level, and there were another dozen on the other. That's a float house thing, and I should probably talk with Taylor about it, because there are about 5 of these have been built on Otter Lake. I don't know if they're built with permits. They're built at this access point and they're floated into whoever owns the property. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. The problem is there was a complaint put in about materials being stored for too long. And as it turns out, I had a chat with the complainant, and the real complaint was that he believes there was trespass on his property because the access point isn't clearly marked. So that's something for the township to consider. Is there a survey necessary and some way of marking it? However, the real issue is that this contractor was, and I don't know, I wasn't there, so I'm taking it as secondhand, but there was a lot of issue with our bylaw officers, and the contractors canceled the second of 2 septic installations that he was going to do on the lake. And septic is very important. Otherwise, you've got an outhouse. So it's a water quality issue for Otter Lake. So, and one of the things that was used was a parks bylaw. And I had talked to the CAO. And he said that the parks bylaw hasn't been updated for some time. And if I could get a commitment from the CAO that we would have a updated parks bylaw by the spring, then I wouldn't go any further on it. The only other thing I had a resolution to make that particular access point not subject to the parks bylaw. But I'd like to hear from the CAO. And it's critically important that we have access points like this on Otter Lake. It's the only one, and it's the only way you can put in a new septic, the only way you can get cottage packages over. 1989, our rebuild of our cottage came over to that access point, and for water access, it's critical. So Jason? So I just want,
before you get Mr. Inwood to reply to you, I'd like to speak to this as well, because I don't believe that this particular location is the only one in the township. I think there's multiple locations. I know that, for example, the beach in the north part of Lake Joseph is being used by contractors, not so much for heavy barging. That tends to go out of the heavy barge port, just simply to get bigger equipment in there. But certainly it's critical to the life of any small inland lake. Now, I had talked to Chief Inwood last summer, saying that there was definitely a need to differentiate between lake access for contractors and what constitutes a developed park, because a lot of these access points aren't really developed, right? So to try to impose it. So, and I believe that's already underway, but I'll let him speak to it. But I had the same concern, just for your reassurance, okay?
yeah, because the problem is he's canceled the second septic, and contractors tend to talk amongst themselves. And if there's a perception that Seguin is being tough on contractors, then water access cottages are a serious problem trying to get septics in or other large deliveries.
Do you want to speak, or do you want her to ask? Yeah, you could go ahead, Councilor.
My question is, is the access to build cottages, or is it for these floaty things that you're talking about? Is that septic for the floaty, or is that septic?
No,
for...
the float boathouse was built at that access point as well. There would be no other place to build it, and you couldn't bring it in by road. It's too big.
What is the floaty house doing? Like I'm confused.
Okay, it's like a boathouse, except it's on float.
Yeah, but you're not allowed to have floaty boaties out on the, like, I'm just concerned that the big concern may not be the no septic. The big concern may be you're building floaty things and sending them out there with no septic.
Well,
no, they're not living. They have no living quarters on them. They're just like a normal boathouse with no living quarters, except that they've got their instant pop-up boathouses. And that's another question entirely.
Good.
Yeah.
I was just confused.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I just
Councilor
had
Adams.
some- I thought a boat launch was a boat launch, not part of the park. Boat launch, isn't it?
Well, I think that's
Gotta be.
that's sort of that's the problem. I think you need to clearly differentiate. The other thing you have to do is make sure that these access points that are used by contractors, that they're available for all contractors to use it. One contractor is not allowed to monopolize it. Certainly septics are in a different category than staging material, because typically nobody wants to leave material on the shore too long, because it'll grow feet. Whereas septic is could be a 1 or 2 week process depending on the size of the marine equipment. So I think that all needs to be taken into account, because certainly we don't want to discourage any contractor from
The contractor.
development. That's not the the intent, I don't think, and, you know, I share your concerns. Let Jason weigh in now. He was supposed to weigh in 10 minutes ago.
Sorry, Jason.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Chair, members of council. I think everybody's got similar concerns, and those concerns, as Councillor Fellner noted, have, you know, started earlier this year on with a couple of different locations. We've had a variety of challenges with some of these water access points, which in today's parks bylaw are deemed parks and therefore are regulated under the rules and regulations of the parks bylaw. Not to suggest that it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but what I will confirm, and I appreciate the debate, it helped me find a piece of information I was looking. On April 3rd of this year, council, you endorsed the work plan for the bylaw folks for this year. And in there is Q4, which we have just recently entered into in the last weeks, a rewrite of the parks bylaw. So you should expect to see a new bylaw for the parks coming late this year, perhaps, you know, no later than January of 2023 for council consideration. Noted is this differential between park versus water access, commercial activity versus recreational activity. And my request would be to let us go to work on and finish our work plan that we presented back in April, and you'll see that parks bylaw before you, ideally in December.
So then I won't put forward my resolution.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna say that I failed to recognize you, Councillor Collins, and please step up to the microphone.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I just, Mayor, Chair, Mayor. No, but these specific areas that the contractors use should be, as far as I'm concerned, called a staging area. And that's what it's used for, dumping loads of gravel, sand, whatever, and materials, and barge back and forth, ran back and forth, but a staging area. So everybody knows exactly that that's where a contractor will use that specific part of the, right?
I think one thing to add, Councillor Collins, is with any staging areas or contractor access points, whatever we may call these, you know, we have to establish the process and the protocols for how approvals are in place, because we do obviously carry some risk and liability with materials being stored on township property without some form of notice approval, etc. So included in what we bring forward will be the processes that we would recommend move forward to ensure that, you know, an occupancy permit or some form of a permit or approval of some sort is in place prior to anyone storing materials for extended periods of time.
No, I'm gonna have. This is your first time, Mayor, to speak to this, so you go ahead.
I just want to suggest that as you tackle that, I'm not comfortable with anybody building anything at the staging area, whether it's a floating boathouse or anything. I do think we need to look at what permits are associated with that. But staging is putting your supplies down and carrying them to an island or another cottage. It is not using it as a construction site.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very important part of what you're going to look at.
I think to your point, your worship, you know, we've got two different issues here. The use of the access point is one that I've defined. We have a process we're working through to get a resolution before council. The other is to look into this construction of these floating structures of sorts that and whether they're legitimate, whether they have the appropriate permits, etc. So I that's noted as well. We'll be investigating into that as well.
Yeah, you need to keep in mind that a floating boathouse is commonly used in Georgian Bay, and it's an approved, it can be an approved foundation for a boathouse, so. But I agree, they don't need to be built on township property. That it for the,
No, just one more thing.
oh, yes.
I
sorry.
just wanted to mention that those boat accesses are not just for contractors. Those are for the local people that use those access points. So having somebody build something there or somebody taking up all the space, as we know has happened in another location, that has to be addressed as well, because I have a lot of calls about that kind of thing, that they need to be accessed by everybody.
Okay, can move on. Everybody satisfied? Perfect. Okay, so thank you for that, Councillor Brzezinski. I think that is a very good thing. Council reports. I guess I could just go around the table. And we'll start with number one and board number one in our.
Well, I don't have much. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to the pumpkin festival. I've only had one email and one call. One email was about Ferris Hill. What's going on with Ferris Hill? So I'm using the roads needs study to get an answer for them, hopefully. And I had another call on the condition of Horseshoe Lake Road. Through the roads, about the roads needs study and what's going to happen to Horseshoe Lake Road, because I got to admit it is in bad shape. It needs to be fixed. And so I'm gonna come forward with him later in another council meeting on the condition of the road, because it's damage to his car and it's damage to other cars. That's all.
You, Councillor Adams, Councillor Brzezinski.
Well, Councillor Getty says that he's convinced that he's working for 37 cents an hour. This past 2-week period, I don't think I made 37 cents an hour even. We had extensive issues. One was that there was some reconstruction done at the Otter Lake Marina, and no parking signs were put up, and I must have had 40 calls about that, because it would result in the removal of about 15 parking spots. Fortunately, our Director of Public Works sprang into action and we bagged the no parking signs. And I'm going to suggest that angle parking would probably maintain most of the parking spots. I also had a number of calls with respect to the access point and what was going on there. And I'm still communicating about that one property on James Bay Junction Road. So there's been a lot of local things happening for me this period. Thank you.
Thank you. I attended Pumpkin Fest on the Thanksgiving weekend. I'll leave that to Gail to speak about. It's her ward, and just like to thank her and her team. I thought they did a great job. I had a committee of adjustment meeting on the 11th, a number of calls that have been working through, but it's been a fairly quiet couple of weeks. Thank you.
I think I get to go last. So we'll go around the table and ask our ex-mayor to.
Oh, I hope I'm not the ex-mayor, but. So on October 3rd, I was at a very well-attended seniors lunch in Orville. Over 80 people showed up. And Ken Griffiths from operations has a new job description because we were so short of people. He and I waited tables. So and they loved him. The seniors loved Ken serving tables. So and Kara was there as well. Kara did most of the organizing, but it was very well attended. Last year they had 20 some, and this year 80. So it was nice to see them. On the 5th, I attended the business committee meeting here. And I just want to remind you that on October 27th, we have the mayor's lunch coming up for the business community. I hope you'll all attend, and please RSVP. You would have seen an email from Valerie in the last day or so. So we need to count heads, but RSVP to that. And one of the things I might do, depending on who RSVPs between Ted and I, we may recruit you as servers at that, because Ted and I both sit on that committee.
I'm sorry, Mary, I got you on mute right now.
And the Pumpkin Fest really was well attended. It was pretty soggy part of the day. Both our MP and MPP were there, not in official capacities, with their families and visiting and buying food and stuff. So it was great to see them in our end of their riding. The 8th and 9th was Thanksgiving weekend, and the Little Lake Joe Association has a, what do I call it? A closing cocktail party that I participated in, as everybody helps everybody else pull their boats out. The 10th, I attended the Muskoka Watershed Communication Meeting, and I've given the PowerPoint that came from that to Donna to put in next meeting's agenda package, because it's quite interesting. So it should be there. Then on the 11th, several of us attended the Emergency Management Committee planning session, I guess, and there will be something coming to council from Chief Sean Carroll. And then also on the 11th, I attended the West Perry Sound Rec and Cultural Center meeting that I think you'll get an update from Councillor Fellner, but the plans, the concept plans for the pool and rec center are up at letsmakeasplash.ca for anybody's comments, the floor plans and everything. So I encourage you to take a look. That's what was presented last Wednesday. And that's my report. Over to you, Mr. Ward 5.
Thank you. I also attended the Seguin business meeting on the 5th of this month. I also attended the a DSAB meeting on the 12th. And I also have been working with the Ministry of the Environment. We had an incident on Camp George that I'm handling this myself, and I'll share this with council on our closed meeting today, if you don't mind. This is important.
Yeah, add it to. Add it. Can we add it? You can't. Yeah.
Well, then I could speak about it, but I'd rather not.
No,
Ask the clerk. He can.
what do we do? Doesn't want to talk about.
We can, but we have to know what it is and the reason it's enclosed, so we can put it on the resolution before you go into closed.
Well, there was a,
Is there an identifiable individual?
yes.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
there's your
it's gonna
reason.
be a.
If-
Yeah, okay.
You just have to. You just, it has to be on that agenda.
Doesn't sound like. You're gonna have to be a little more specific. It doesn't sound to me like one person is involved here that.
Well,
makes
well,
sense.
there's attorneys
Is it
involved as well.
litigation or-
Yeah, yeah,
So it's
yeah,
litigation or
yes.
That sounds a little.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. You done?
Yep, I'm done.
Councillor Fiction?
I attended a Belvedere Heights meeting, also attended an in-person DSAB meeting, the first one we've had since before COVID, just since COVID started. It was kind of nice to see everybody. It was an interesting meeting, a longer than usual meeting, which was nice. I've had a few phone calls about the portage on Lake Rosso and Dyson Lake. And so that's all being handled by Tom. So he's doing a great job. And I also was at Pumpkin Fest. I was there from 6 a.m. till about 4. I was pretty tired, but it was lovely. Everything went really, really well. Everything went to, hopefully the financials come out really well, because it was wonderful. I thought it went really well, even though we had all that rain. I thought that it was really well attended. People sold out of their stuff, so they were really happy to be there. So, and other than that, and the fire department, having them there was wonderful. There was a little girl and she had a wetsuit on. She was on the slide and she was about 2.5. And she kept going down the slide. And every time she'd get to the bottom, she'd jump up and see me and laugh. And then up again, she'd go, she must have done it for an hour. And then I would go over and she's in the fire truck and Paul had taken her picture in the fire truck. She was just everywhere. Really cute. I don't know. She was Ukrainian. Her father was, I think, but I don't know if she spoke English or not, but she was lovely. I enjoyed that bouncy castle very much. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Vincent. So the last 2 weeks, I had, as the mayor previously mentioned, I had a meeting of the Recreation Pool Board meeting last week, which we'll discuss a little further on in the meeting. I also had a meeting I attended by Zoom for Park to Park, which sort of apprising of our progress with the MNRF and that type of thing and where we're trying to go. And I had a meeting, a subcommittee meeting regarding the turkey dinner in December at Orville. So for those of you that aren't aware, we are putting on a turkey dinner, Christmas turkey dinner. The township is through the rec committee. In Orville, it'll be the Saturday, the second Saturday in December, not the third is a Sunday. It's
It's
Saturday.
the ninth.
Yeah, October 9th, and it'll be in the Orville Community Center and or December 9th, pardon me. Santa will be there. Tentatively planning to cook 600 turkey dinners. And with some home delivery, and it's at no cost to any resident that wants to come out to Orville and enjoy a Christmas dinner. It's being organized and managed through the rec committee, the new major rec committee. So this is a new event for us. We hope to make a success of this and perhaps next year run a couple of them. And yes.
So it's for any Seguin resident?
Yeah, it's well, it's for
Anybody.
that needs a turkey dinner.
And
You know.
you tell them to get a hold of something?
Yeah, the Bowery's is offered to,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Not yet.
No, but not yet, but it's gonna be handled through Bowery's volunteered to take on that aspect of it. And we're just gonna ask people to either log on to the website or call and you reserve a couple of dinners, just so for, we don't want to cook too many or too little dinners, but we're gonna cap it at 6. Because, because we have to order a certain amount of food. We can't.
That's three sittings.
Well, two sittings and a bit. We figured probably 100 home deliveries, and then, look at the org chart. There's the volunteer list is incredible. So anybody that's got some time to donate, there's a couple of counselors around the table, including the mayor, that has said they'd help out. I think staff is going to get involved. We've got a lot of volunteers around the township. It's something I'm excited about it. I think it's a really good thing for us to do. So that's it for me. And I know that Mr. Inwood has things that he wishes to inform us of.
Just, I'll be very brief today. A couple quick things though. Seguin staff are supporting the township's recreation committee, who is hosting a special community event for kids and families on Halloween at the Humphrey Community Center between 5:30 and 7 p.m. There will be some games and refreshments. All are welcome to join. Also, the township is supporting the Veterans Banner Program again this year. So banners will be installed throughout the village of Rosso in the coming days. We're excited to see them up. They're up already. There you go.
They're beautiful.
And we are just in the process of finalizing some details about Seguin's annual food drive. So stay tuned, but we will have some more details about our plan to support Harvest Share for this coming holiday season in the weeks ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, CAO Inwood. That the council of the corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the board and committee minutes and Minutes and agendas and the correspondence is presented on the agenda and the addendum for the October 16th, 2023 meeting of council. I have someone move that. Counselor Bazinski, Counselor Getty, second. And all in favor? And that's carried.
Just a question on the closed session, Camp George. That was a wastewater issue?
Yes.
Okay.
That the council of the corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby proceed to a closed meeting at 4:45 PM in order to address matters pertaining to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board related to the West Perry Sound Recreation and Cultural Center project. Excuse me, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees related to, excuse me, human resource matters, labor relations or employee negotiations related to human resource matters, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality, Camp George, a wastewater matter. May I have someone move this? Moved by Counselor Collins, seconded by Counselor Vincent. We need some input from that side of the table. All in favor? And that is carried. Yeah.